Hello folks, how's it going? So welcome to another One Piece review. This time I'll be covering manga chapter 1098 and oh boy, did Oda open up a can of worms with this chapter. I did not expect this chapter to take this dark twist that it did, despite the fact this flashback of Kuma's has been very dark thus far. So this flashback started in chapter 1095. I would assume the next chapter will end the flashback and go back into present time. So I want to preface this like this is going to be a very controversial chapter for obvious reasons. But I will start with this. Context is everything, especially when it comes to chapters like this. I'm not going to lie, when I read this chapter, it kind of threw me for a loop. Because number one, the chapter itself is unfinished, I think. Oda was like pressed for time, but yeah, it was definitely noticeable in this chapter. So it looks like, I'm guessing when the volumes come out, that'll be cleared up. So that was number one. Number two, it sticks out is because Oda doesn't usually have stuff like this very often. So, and this chapter, I said in the last review, like it definitely was a tragic one for Kuma. But I thought it was more dark than it was tragic. In this chapter, it's not only tragic, but it's dark and holy shit disturbing. So, and it's ironic that Brook is on the cover page, considering Kuma's backstory kind of reflects Brook's a little bit, especially Law's as well. We got Brook on the cover page with electric eels in the background while he's playing the guitar. That's cool. I think, like I said, I feel like it's appropriate considering how dark the whole backstory has been for Kuma. When you consider how tragic it was for Brook's backstory, Law's as well, even Robin's was like tough to go through. So yeah, but Kuma, I'll give my 2 cents about that by the end because I feel what Oda's doing is like kind of like out of left field, but it's also super genius, and I'll explain why. We start this chapter off with Kuma going off on a rampage because now he's got a word that Ginny has been captured by the world government. We see the Baltico, the former HQ of the Revolutionary Army before Dragon dipped. So, and we find out for Ivankov that they're at Goa Kingdom right now. In the meantime, you've got Kuma is going on a rampage trying to get Ginny back, understandably so. We kind of get context and like more exposition on what happened. So it's not clear who captured Ginny. I'll get to that in a minute, but apparently, Ginny caught the eye of the celestial dragons and she was captured. We saw the figure that appeared in the last chapter, and I questioned that, and I'm still questioning that because I don't think that's just a random scrub that just appeared. In this chapter, they call Ginny a commander of the Revolutionary Army. That's not a joke. So whoever it is must have been mid to top tier to be able to capture Ginny and take down the squad that was with her. She caught the eye of a celestial dragon. They took her on a government ship because the celestial dragons wanted to make her bride. So this took a twist. Well, we knew the government had to be involved with this. What we didn't know is the twist that came on later on. So you got pirates like celebrating because the Revolutionary Army are taking down the Marines, the government. Because you see the Marines listening in, so it was Revolutionary Army again that did this. We see a ship with Dragon on board, and he's hooded up, and you got Kuma on the Dendamushi contacting him, said, "I'm sorry, I went all out, I went overboard, I can't get back on my own, I need a ship." After that, 2 years go by, and we see a ship, ironically, and it's in complete daylight, with the sun in the air. We see Ginny talking to Bonney, who's at this point is born. Bonnie's been born. We don't know how old she is at this point. She contacts them on Dendamushi while she's returned. So because they say Ginny's on the line right now, Dragon, Kuma, and even Koth listen in, and she's like, "I finally made it back to land. They didn't want me around. After I got sick, I was thrown away." So it looks like what happened is, it looks like the marriage actually went down and then she was kicked to the curb pretty much, which is really messed up. After she got sick. And then Kuma's like, "Wait, you're sick?" And Ginny's like, "So I wanted to see everyone one last time. even Koff and Kuma, understandably so, is like freaking out. Like Kuma's like, what are you talking about? If you're sick, where are you? I'll be there in an instant. And Ginny's like, no, I don't want you to see me like this. But obviously Kuma went off. We don't really get to see her whole body, how distorted, how bad it is, because she's got a condition. So she's like, I'm at death's door. I'm really glad you care about me, but you shouldn't come see me when I'm like this. So obviously Kuma dips. He's gone. He goes back to the church where he figures that's where she's going to be. But by that point, it's too late. And unfortunately, when Kuma dipped, like he missed the "I love you" quote from Ginny, which I think like that's kind of tragic in itself. Like, and once Kuma arrives, obviously it's too, like I said, it's too late. And the description we get is, it happened when she was exposed to natural light. Her face, her entire body, it turned all blue in the sun, and her skin hardened. We don't get what's interesting about this is like we don't really get a full body shot of her condition and how this thing works, because it's like her body hardened up like stone because of a condition. And what we come to find out, it's like sapphire scale, not white lead poisoning. Even though both diseases are incurable apparently, and we get a montage of panels of Ginny. We get one shot of where Kuma's holding Ginny, but that's all we see. We don't really get to see a close up, which again is kind of like I said, it's depressing, but I feel like with chapters like this, context actually matters. So I feel like if this is a disease that was caused by, I don't know, whatever happened at Mera Jose, per se, because we know that apparently a Tenryubito eyed her up, wanted to marry her. Obviously, he got successful, and you can add the rest together, but with Bonney being born. But yeah, it's super tragic, super messed up. It's like the way it's been described. It's like she crossed the ocean to protect Bonney from the light. So she wanted to ensure her daughter's safety at the cost of her own life. So that's real tragic. Kuma is like, I'll raise her. He's done a pretty good job of that thus far. So whoever came up with the theory that Kuma was actually not her biological father, congratulations. But to me, when it comes to One Piece, that really doesn't matter when you consider like Ace, sort of Whitebeard, as his father figure, even though he was the son of Roger. So, and in 4 chapters, or at least one of the top 5 mothers in One Piece, I would put Toki up there. I would put Nico Olivier up there. I would put Bellamy up there, even though technically, that's another one. Even though biologically she wasn't Nami or Nojiko's mother, she was a mother figure for them. So Bonney is like being looked after by Kuma, and this is again from beginning to end. When it comes to this flashback, it's been an emotional roller coaster. The added twist is I thought was going to be the inclusion of what happened in God Valley, but this is the twist that I did not expect. Like, I expected some things to like Oda to throw a curveball, but the circumstances around Bonney's birth is like super messed up. When you put even though Oda didn't officially outright state, you can kind of infer what went on. We see different parts of Kuma taking care of Bonney, but at the same time, Kuma going on a rampage, saving people left, right, and center. We even see a panel of Little Sabo clashing with Kuma, which I think is interesting because that was anime-only exclusive content, which back in the anime, when after we got Dressrosa, we got Sabo's flashback. I believe Oda had a heavy hand in those episodes involving Sabo. We did get a scene where Sabo fought with Kuma. So that's actually really cool that Oda included that in canon to make it a kind of official. And then Kuma decides to board up all the windows because, as I mentioned, Bonney has the same disease that took away Ginny's life. So that becomes a problem. And we see the blue stone or the scale that appears on her face. Like, we know, like, if you saw the body of Ginny, the whole body was like covered in scales. Before, apparently, it's been described as blue stone. And then the 2 guys who officially end up with with Bonney on in a crew, they figure it out, and it's like, oh, it's just like what Ginny had, and they decide to call a doctor. Unfortunately, no doctor can have a cure for this because there's one doctor that says it doesn't seem to be white lead poisoning, which is completely different. There's another doctor that describes it as sapphire scale. So, but it's like, even if you keep her away from natural daylight, it still won't do anything because it's going to spread no matter what. So it's incurable, and because of this, Kuma says, I'm quitting the Revolutionary Army, I have to attend to her, and Dragon's like, I got it. I understand it's important to live without regrets. There is a lot of Dragon slander of this chapter. He says, like, we can eye up all the doctors all over the place that can help cure her. Kuma's like, I owe you one. We got Bonney like chasing after the kids because they're teasing her about her condition because she can't step into daylight, because you got kids like teasing her, you can't travel this far because obviously you can't. I dare you to take a step back. It's really super messed up. So, and Bonney, being the rebel that she is, gives them the middle finger. She ends up kicking the hell out of one kid who deserved it, because he was like trying to tease her with the cross and that, trying to make it out like she was a vampire. But there is some connection to her staying in natural daylight. Unfortunately, again, it doesn't seem to make a difference because her condition's not going to improve just because Kuma's boarded up the windows. And this is the part that really gets me, because Bonney is like, oh, I hate it when you get sad and worried, because I feel like that's what's happening right now. Like I said, the past is going to correlate with the present, with Kuma showing up to save his daughter, even if it's his last act. So, but she also knows about Sun God Nika, because she's like, it's close to the sun, so we may end up seeing Nika there. You'd love that, right, Dad? So I feel like the sun is going to have an impact once Bonney is freed or saved. And you got Kuma doing the dance as well as the drums of liberation, which is exactly how this flashback started. And Kuma's like, that sounds like a grand adventure. And Bonney's like, we should go to Fishman Island. I guess because there's a connection with, obviously, what's on the poneglyph that's on Skypiea. Just like how with Law's flashback, how Law couldn't get a cure for the disease, and no doctor could tell him how to cure it. The same thing with Bonney. And that's where he gets told, but it'll all be over by her 10th birthday. And what's really messed up is, like, after the conversation, Bonney scares the hell out of Kuma and reveals, like, she heard everything. Like, but she doesn't seem to tear up. Like, it's really messed up. But Kuma's the only one that's feeling this right now, because, like, to have a child like that go through something this messed up and still have a smile on her face, like, yeah. There's no way Bonnie's dying in this arc. I'm sorry, like, no. And the chapter ends with basically King Bokuri deciding to return and decide to burn houses again. So he's going to cut the dead weight and burn people's homes to the ground with people in them. And that's how the chapter ends. Now, like I said, this chapter was an added emotional roller coaster, but it went super dark and super disturbing. So the whole situation, I'll get to Ginny in a minute, because I feel like there's a lot of question marks here. When it comes to like Bonney and her age, I feel like that's like secondary now. That doesn't really matter. What matters is the character that she winds up becoming. So, and we know she survives and I'm pretty sure it's going to have something to do with the devil fruit. The way Bonney's going to survive is by consuming the devil fruit, which Oda revealed in the volume 107 SBS. He revealed the name of Bonney's devil fruit, which I feel like is kind of ironic. And it's named the Toshi no Mi. So the age fruit, I'm assuming, which I'm pretty sure, like I said, in the next chapter, we're gonna see the full design of the devil fruit that Bonney's gonna have. So that's probably gonna save a life. Whatever her age is, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, what matters is the character she ends up becoming. Now, when it comes to like the whole Ginny thing, and I find it very ironic, in the last chapter that was titled Ginny, the question marks were all about, it wasn't about Ginny, it was all about what's the age of Bonney? how old is a legit age? Nothing's really official, so this chapter here confirmed it. Even though the title of the chapter is The Birth of Bonney, this chapter is not what people are questioning right now. Like, there's some people that are questioning this, but there's a lot more people that are questioning what happened with Ginny and how super messed up this was. And like I said, context is everything when it comes to like situations like this. It's a very real, and unfortunately it happens way too often. I have two questions when it comes to like this whole situation. Number one, when she was kidnapped, why was she eyed by the Tenryubito in the first place? Why? Because I get the feeling like this has something to do with what happened on God Valley, because it's like there's no way that the Celestial Dragon just like, oh what, let's just go pick this random girl up out of nowhere without actually knowing some context behind it. I don't think that was his decision. I just feel like the Tenryubito got something out of that, but it may be somebody more higher up that decided, oh, let's go after Ginny, especially considering she was connected with the Revolutionary Army. That just I don't know about you, but I find that very suspicious. Like all of a sudden they decide to pop up and capture Ginny only for a celestial dragon to want to marry her, and then once she contracted a disease, they kicked her to the side. They kicked her to the curb. And at that point, it's obvious she was pregnant because Bonney was born. It's obvious Ginny was taking care of Bonney at the cost of her contracting this disease and making it worse because of the sunlight. It just, I don't know. Like people were questioning Dragon and why he didn't do anything to like get her back, considering the fact she was a member of the Revolutionary Army. But we don't really know why they went out of their way to go to an island with a group of revolutionaries there, along with Ginny, decide to kidnap her for whatever reason, and all of a sudden decide, oh, you know what, I want to marry her, let's kidnap her. No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think there's something more to that. It may have something to do with Saturn's involvement. There's no way a Celestial, by the way, there's no way a Celestial Dragon took down a commander of the Revolutionary Army. I'm sorry, no. So either it's a member of Cypherpol, it's an admiral, or maybe they're going to say themselves. I don't know. But that's super, like, weird, and it kind of get me thinking, like, there has to be more to it. And I think, again, context is everything. Oda did implement time jumps throughout most of this flashback, so just keep that in mind. I think, like, there's something to this. Like, Dragon may have figured out it was actually a setup. I think so, too. I think this was a setup. Especially when we consider how did Ginny all of a sudden contract this disease, and there were no signs of her getting ill before she was kidnapped. I don't get it. Obvious, like something messed up happened during that time, and it affected her big time to the point where it's affecting Bonney at this particular time. Like I said, I find it very ironic. In the last 3 chapters, they were named after the 3 people that are indirectly involved in this flashback, and now Bonney's involved with her birth. So Kumachi in chapter 1096, in chapter 1097 it was all about Ginny, and in this chapter it was all about Bonney. And whatever the feelings are about why Dragon didn't show up, I get the feeling that Oda's going to reveal it, and it's going to have a massive payoff. Like, for those saying that Dragon isn't going to like show up and like do some major damage to like Saturn, like, no, this is like been a kept secret, more so than Shanks, what he could do. Like Shanks, he at least Oda decided to have Shanks featured in the movie to see what he can actually do. Add to that what we saw against Kid, like, and especially when you consider the recent episode that we got where it showed the range of Shanks' Conqueror's Hockey. The only thing we've seen thus far in terms of like feat wise is him showing up on Logtown to save Luffy from Smoker. That's it. So that's been longer than Shanks. We saw the clash with Whitebeard in Shanks 2, and that split the heavens for the first time in the series that we saw. So I don't like this. So Oda's been keeping this tight wrapped. I don't think it's going to be a letdown at all. Like, people can have their opinions about Dragon, that's fine. I just don't. I think there's going to be I think there's going to be a massive payoff to it. Whether or not that happens in chapter 1100, I don't know. So that's the whole thing with Ginny and Kuma. Like, we're probably going to go end the flashback next chapter. I'm predicting we're definitely going to get the reveal of Bonnie's devil fruit, and that's obviously what's going to save her. So we know. So with Bonnie's condition, we know she doesn't have it anymore because what's on her face right now is a piercing. I don't know if that's related to it or not, but we know she survives, and obviously it's looking like her age is like around 12. If that's the case, it does make sense considering we've seen her at the age like a kid, and her mentality is like a child anyway. So I can see why she gets super emotional at certain points. And this, listen, it looks like Bonney already knows this because she has to know this because the moment she went into Kuma's memories, like, she obviously knows the truth now, and that's why she decided, you know what, I'm not going to kill Vegapunk, I'm going to kill Saturn. I feel like Saturn has something to do with the kidnapping of Ginny. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know. Again, make what you will about the whole situation involving Ginny and what happened during that 2-year time period is super messed up. But what Oda did here is, like, not only did he just solidify that Bonney is not dying in this arc, he by default has made Bonney one of the most sympathetic characters in the series, Kuma as well. But this goes back to what I've been saying ever since, like, the way Oda has handled Bonney character-wise has been one of the best things in this entire arc. Like, yeah, Kuma's been involved here and there, but it's like the whole emotional aspect is how Bonney's reacting to the whole situation involving Kuma. Like, if you go back to the beginning, like, there's certain scenes that hit harder a lot more now than they did back then, especially when it comes to, like, scenes involving Bonney. When we first saw Bonney introduced, she prevented Zoro from taking down Charlos, a celestial dragon, from getting Straw Hats and her and a lot of other people into hot shit, even though Luffy already punched the hell out of him, which makes this 10 times even more satisfying after this chapter, because I don't know what apply this to, like, being a coincidence, but the fact that Charlos was treating Kuma like a slave, and Charlos was the celestial dragon near Bonney the moment when Bonney was introduced. So I don't know if he's the one that did what he did with Ginny. I don't know. Makes seeing Luffy punch the hell out of him 10 times more satisfying. But this also is going to give credence to Bonney having some major payback against the world government and the celestial dragons. Because there's no way you're going to have a flashback like this and kill one of the innocent parties in all this. When Kuma was taking care of Bonney, she had no clue what happened to Ginny, not knowing that Kuma wasn't even a biological father. It doesn't, like I said, that doesn't matter. But it's just one of those things, like, now she realizes that adds so much more weight to Bonney's character. And I feel like that's going to add to the emotional reunion between the two. Kuma is definitely saving Bonney. So if it wasn't obvious before, it's more obvious now. It's just how he does it and what he does when he gets there. I've already made my prediction of what I think he's going to do. What matters is what Oda writes on the paper when he brings out this chapter. It was super controversial. I didn't expect this type of chapter from Oda. Like, it was already dark in and out of itself involving Kuma. Now you include, like, Ginny having, like, what happened with her, and you take that from a 5 to a 10, like I mentioned at the beginning. And now what I've said previous in the last few reviews that I've done, I have mentioned, like, this is going to carry over from Kuma to Ginny to Bonney. That's a fact. So, like I said, this was pure genius by Oda, because if he did this, because there's certain things that make me think, wait, is this foreshadowing? All you have to do is look at Marineford, that scene where you have, like, the residents of Sabri Archipelago watching what's going on at Marineford. We saw some pacifistas attack. We saw Law's reaction. We saw Drake's reaction. We saw all the supernova that were there. Hawkins, Capone, a rogue. And obviously we saw Bonney, and she was the only one that teared up. We already knew the Tenryubito were like creepy and just, like, messed up, but this takes it up a notch. And I have to bring up something that actually sticks out from chapter 1095. Before this when this flashback first started, first of all, there's 2 scenes. One is when Bonney is having a conversation with Kuma, and it's clearly a conversation between the two because we see that Kuma is telling Bonney about Sun God Nika, and just like how he was told by his father, Nika will set you free. Bonney asks in that same chapter in a flashback, will he set me free too? And Kuma's in a separate panel. You see Kuma respond, yes. So that Oda, and this was before this flashback took place. Like before we knew anything about Ginny, before we knew anything about Kuma and what he went through, before this flashback really got cooking. So I just want to point that out. So that was the first thing that stuck out. The other thing that stuck out, and because of what happened with Ginny, possibly, we also had a scene with Kuma's mother, and it's obviously she was killed by the celestial dragons, but we don't. So I'm just going to leave it at that. It's, like I said, it's a very controversial topic, and it's sort of genius because it adds more weight and it adds more depth to Bonney's character, and it makes you want to cheer for Bonney and Kuma. But unfortunately, I don't know. It's going to be very slim if Kuma can actually survive this. But Bonney absolutely is surviving this arc. Like there's no freaking way. Oda is about giving hope with this manga, so I don't see that being the case. That whenever there's a dark chapter like this, there's also a chapter that's illuminated by light. That's just how Oda maps his story. It's about an adventure, but that's at the end of the day. Look how dark Wano turned out, and look how it ended up. So you better bring out those tissues when Kuma arrives on Egghead Island, because you're gonna need them. Because holy crap, has this been an emotional roller coaster? Like, it's been dark, it's been tragic, it's been sad, but this chapter, wow, was this disturbing? Let me know what you guys think down below. I've just given you my opinion. That's gonna do it for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Like the review if you did it, thumbs up. I appreciate that. Subscribe to more One Piece. Catch you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.